My GF 40F caught me 40M doing something inappropriate. So now we're fighting about her insecurities. Again. How do I navigate this? I get how it looks, and it sounds like a corny excuse, but it's the truth. I was just looking at someone's shirt. If it was a one-time thing, I would just bite the bullet and say I'm sorry, but it's not a one-time thing. We have this same fight several times a week where I do something completely innocent, and she wants me to acknowledge and apologize for how it makes her feel. The rest of the story. My girlfriend is incredibly insecure and expects me to constantly reassure her insecurities. She's got some history, including an abusive ex, and has been cheated on in the past, so I try and be sensitive to her needs, but I can't help but feel backed into a corner by how often this same argument comes up. In the past month, we've had fights about me wanting to stay home and finish some overdue work instead of going out, agreeing to go out but not sounding enthusiastic enough when I agreed, telling her she looks great instead of saying she looks incredible/amazing/fabulous, not waking her up to have sex after she told me not to wake her up, and getting out of bed and going downstairs to watch TV when I couldn't sleep, just to name a few things. The argument is always the same. I do things that I feel are just normal everyday interactions, but she interprets them as some form of rejection. I have perfectly innocent and valid reasons for my actions. She feels I need to respond to her feelings, acknowledge them, and apologize so that we can just move on. Or, better yet, make a big production about how much I love her before I do anything, so that she feels like she's my top priority, even though life gets in the way sometimes. Maybe I should. But the whole thing feels so exhausting at this point. At best, it feels hurtful that she just thinks I'm careless and mean, I guess, and at worst, it feels controlling and abusive. I care about her feelings, I try to be mindful of them, but I feel like a lot of this is on her, and it's unreasonable to expect me to manage her feelings for her. Is there a way to acknowledge and address her feelings without having to constantly swallow my pride and take accountability for things I genuinely, deep down, don't feel are wrong to do? TLDR. My girlfriend, 40F, and I, 40M, were at dinner, just hanging out waiting for the live music to start. I look over and see a woman at the table next to us with a logo/design on her shirt that looks kind of familiar. I'm off in my own world and spend maybe 5 seconds looking at this woman's shirt, then I look back at my GF and she's staring at me and clearly annoyed. You can see where this is going. She's upset that I'm being rude and inappropriate and blatantly checking out some other woman. I maintain my innocence that I was just trying to see her t-shirt, and it's really not a big deal. So give the same fight we had 100 times before. She says I should stop being defensive and just acknowledge and apologize for the way I made her feel.
Date got angry that he arrived 7 hours before and I wasn't there. Maybe I was in the wrong not to rush to him. I am F40 and he is M52. I have been chatting to a man online that lives in a different state to me for the last 4 months. We have been talking every day online and on the phone for hours at a time, and we decided to meet today. He drove 8 hours to see me and we arranged we would meet at a coffee shop at 2 p.m. He calls me and tells me he drove all night to see me and he arrived at 7 a.m. I had things on in the morning and wasn't able to leave to see him straight away. I did cancel some appointments and was in a hurry to try to see him earlier. I got an angry call from him at 11:45 a.m. asking how much longer I'll be and where I am. I said I am leaving in 30 to 45 minutes and I will see him soon. 15 minutes later he calls again and starts shouting at me saying I am playing games with him, and he is sick of waiting for me and I am playing games with him, and he is driving home and forget the coffee date. I managed to calm him down and left what I was doing, was getting my hair done, and yes, I left the salon with it half done and went to him immediately. When I got there he was cold and angry and he said, "You're not what I want. I don't want a woman that takes forever to come to me." I tried to explain to him we arranged to meet at 2 p.m. and just because he decided to drive all night to see me and arrive early, that was great, but I couldn't drop everything to see him. He was so angry that he was rude to staff as well, and he was complaining that the coffee wasn't good and it was cold, etc. Everything was bothering him, and in the end, he just left me there and said he is leaving, he is going home. My heart is broken as I spent 4 months getting to know this man, so many hours online and on the phone, and this is how it ended. He said he felt that if I was serious about him I would have arrived within 2 hours of him arriving instead of coming at the time we had both arranged. Am I in the wrong and I messed all this up? Should I have done something different and the outcome would be different? TLDR. Date arrived in town at 7 a.m. for a 2 p.m. date and got angry with me as I didn't come to see him within 2 hours of him arriving. Could I have changed the outcome had I arrived when he wanted me to rather than when we agreed? My 32F husband, 34M, of nearly 10 years just asked for a divorce, like 5 hours ago. I am reeling. How does one fall back in love with someone? Posting on a throwaway account. Well, I, 32F, never thought I'd have to consider a life without my husband, 34M, who was also my absolute best friend. But it appears that is an increasingly real possibility. Let me give some background. My husband, James, fake names, yada yada, and I met in 2009 at a concert. He pursued me, and I was in high school at the time. He had recently graduated, and it was fun and low-stakes situationship. He was lovely, but I figured it was doomed to be short-lived, as I was leaving for college soon, so it wouldn't last. Well, I moved up to college, and he moved up to a nearby city to continue the relationship. We did over a year of long distance before he proposed to me, at the same musical artist we met at 2 years prior. I said yes, and he worked to move to the same city, and had a 4-year-long engagement. I finished my degree, he completed some schooling. We were thick as thieves, and helped each other through various tumult, such as parents' divorce and being young and impoverished. Neither of us have a very solid family of origin, which is one of the reasons I felt our relationship was so solid. We made a home in each other, and grew together. We really had no financial support or help, so I was and am incredibly proud of our younger selves for what we had managed to do for ourselves in spite of having virtually no safety net. We got our first adult jobs and bought our first house. Due to some circumstances, he moved to a different city for better work opportunities. We basically had our relationship squished into a 3-day weekend, but we made good use of the time and genuinely enjoyed each other. We did about 2.5 years of long distance like this, but still managed to see the world and still felt closer than ever, though we would often pine for each other. When the pandemic hit in 2020, we decided enough was enough, and took the plunge to live together again, and bought a house. We were extremely lucky with our timing, and I got a job in his city. We built an incredible life, and every day I found myself so grateful to be married to my best friend, and that we had such a solid foundation in our relationship. At this point, we had outlasted many of our friends' marriages, and would joke that we lucked out finding each other when we did, etc., just all around grateful for each other, and did our best to remind each other of that. So if the relationship is all so good, how is that I am asking internet strangers in a most likely futile effort in trying to salvage a marriage where one person is set on divorce? At least as far as I knew, until he went to stay with friends after a frustratingly brief conversation that completely blindsided me asking for a divorce. So back to my narrative. Over the past 4 years, we excelled in our careers, had some older pets pass away, continued to be each other's rock during times of crisis, including but not limited to family members going to prison, helping one of our moms leave an abusive crazy ex-husband, deaths of family members both expected and unexpected, saw each other respond to winter blues, money stressors, haphazard house projects, and there's more, but I'm not in the headspace to think, nor be particularly articulate at the moment. Also during that time, we experienced a bit of a drought in our sex life. He was taking meds that increased his sex drive, side effects, and I was taking a med that decreased my sex drive, again, side effects. I'll admit, I definitely didn't initiate sex as often as I should have. He told me that it hurt his feelings to always be the one to try to initiate sex, and I'll be honest, due to some ingrained religious trauma, I had some things to work through. If this is where the issues started, but I'm sure it didn't help things. It was far from a dead bedroom, however. I find it important to speak to some of the challenges we had that were not yet resolved to the satisfaction of all parties. Honestly, I'd change my medication, I'd speak to a doctor about it, but we never really spent a dedicated time talking about it, and eventually he dropped the subject. Another hindsight red flag, goddammit. Now to the last 5 weeks. We went on a trip, and while on the trip, found out that James' aunt had passed. Really terrible situation on top of the fact that we had taken this trip with friends and carpooled the 20-something hour car ride together, and felt very much trapped as to what to do. James decided to make the best of the trip, and ultimately decided to put off the grieving until later. I tried everything to comfort and be there for him, and James essentially told me to stop asking about it, and knowing that everyone grieves differently, I gave him space, and remained sensitive to how he appeared/acted, but decided to allow him to take the first step when he wanted support with his grief. Since that trip, and only with the benefit of hindsight, James texted me less and less to check in. Less cuddly/physical affection, not really any quality time together. At first, I chalked it up to work being crazy for him, and for myself, it wasn't super uncommon for us to each have crazy hectic weeks, and be a little less in tune with each other from time to time. However, as time went on, I started asking James outright, "Hey, are we good? Do things feel off between us?" And he replied with something about work being crazy, all that. And I had no reason not to believe him. He's been an honest, gentle man whom I trusted completely. But things still felt off. Daily kisses goodbye weren't happening, and his texts felt more businesslike. Who fed the dogs, which bills have been paid, etc. And again, I asked him, I feel disconnected from you. For probably the first time in our relationship. Are you woke? Are we oak? To which he doubled down on work being busy, which I accepted once more, though feeling increasingly like I needed to go out of my way to make him feel special. I coordinated a big birthday celebration for him and booked us tickets for a cool romantic nature event for the two of us. He seemed to enjoy his party, though afterwards when everyone left, I tried to engage in our usual post-event friend group debrief, and James didn't really engage like he used to. I chalked it up to it being late and went to bed. On the day of the nature experience thing, I wake up ready for the little adventure I planned for him and however, James said he had a stomach ache and wouldn't be able to make it. He encouraged me to go with a friend, though I wasn't able to get any takers on such short notice. Not to be deterred, I wished him well, gave him little snacks and refilled his water and all the kind things he would do for me if I was feeling under the weather, and I went on my own to take pictures and tell James all about it, so we could go a different time when he was feeling up to it. That was last Sunday. Now, it's Wednesday. About 6 hours ago now, James dropped the news on me that he hasn't been unhappy for a while now, and he thinks our relationship has run its course. I asked if he meant divorce, to which he said he did. At this point he's got tears in his eyes, and I'm hyperventilating and still in disbelief. I asked him why, and he said he had fallen out of love with me, at some point at the beginning of the year around January. I asked him if there was someone else, and he said, I would never do that to you. And he also said that being on our trip, which he had hoped would be a reset for him, and snap him out of it, was a wake-up call for him, because, in his words, in my time of grief, when I should have been seeking support from loved ones, I didn't want anything to do with you, which feels so unfair. I understand that big decisions should never be made in the wake of grief, and the trip was only 5 weeks ago. Which is truly when I noticed his change in behavior towards me. Right now, he is at a friend's house, and is going on a pre-planned trip for a wedding that we were both planning to go to. He said he will be back Saturday and will be able to talk more then. Earlier this evening I asked him if he would come back to the house, to which he said he didn't think it would be a good idea. But in his thoughtfulness he messaged a friend of mine and told her to come over to be with me so I wouldn't be alone. I know he still cares and says he still loves me, even if he says he isn't in love with me. So internet strangers, between tears and bouts of sobbing, I ask you, can one fall back in love with someone? Any advice for me when I see him Saturday? I love him so much, and until literally today, thought we were united on all fronts. TLDR. Husband asked for a divorce after nearly 15 years together, and is seemingly firm in his decision without speaking to me about it beforehand or trying anything to avoid divorce. So I ask, 1. Can one fall back in love with someone? Is there hope for our relationship? Is this some sort of side effect of his grieving a lost loved one? 2. I'll see him again on Saturday. What I do/say? What should I ask for? Any divorces with cautionary takes and rekindled lovers to bring me hope. Has anyone any advice for a literal desperate woman? Thaya. Not sure what exactly I'm hoping for, but I sure am hoping.